So if it's not already perfectly clear to you, there are serious consequences affiliated with anti-vaccine bullshit. And we have another example of it right here. So a new study came out. Republican deaths in Florida and Ohio linked to COVID vaccine politics. In other words, people on the right, conservative voters, conservative citizens, are more likely to have bought in to anti-vax talking points, then they don't get the vaccine, and then more of them die. That's the gist of it. Now, let me give you the specifics here. And this isn't the only study that's come to this conclusion, so hang on for that. We bring those up at the end here. Registered Republicans experienced a, quote, significantly higher rate of excess deaths than Democrats in Florida and Ohio in the months after COVID-19 vaccines were made widely available, a new study has found. This is kind of crazy, especially because Trump wanted to take credit for the vaccine. He did. He's now been pushed off of that because the right-wing base is very anti-vax. But, like, in theory, it should have been the opposite, right? It should have been Democrats who were more like, and there, to be fair, I think it was like Kamala in the wake of the vaccine being created. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to take it. Why? Because Trump was affiliated with it. But now we're seeing in the real world here, apparently there was just more anti-vaccine sentiment on the right. The Yale researchers note in their study, published in the journal JAMA International Medicine Monday, the findings suggest that well-documented differences in vaccination attitudes and reported uptake between Republican and Democratic voters may have been a factor in the severity and trajectory of the pandemic. The study builds on growing evidence suggesting that a person's political leanings could have been a COVID risk factor. Researchers examined 538,000 deaths, in individuals aged 25 years and older in Florida and Ohio from March 2020 to December 2021. Political party affiliation in Ohio was defined by whether an individual voted in a party's primary election within the preceding 2 calendar years. In Florida, it was based on party registration. Researchers found the differences were concentrated in counties with lower vaccination rates and primarily noted in voters who lived in Ohio. Party affiliation only became a substantial factor after vaccines were made available to all adults in the U.S., with the gap in excess deaths between Republicans and Democrats concentrated in places with low vaccination rates. After May 1st, 2021, when the vaccines were available to all adults, researchers found the excess death rate gap between Republicans and Democratic voters widened from a percentage point of negative 0.9 to 7.7 percentage points, which means that the excess death rate among Republican voters was 43% higher than that among Democratic voters. So that is definitely statistically significant. The researchers emphasize that the study has limitations, including that they did not examine causes of death nor individual vaccination status. They noted their research was based on data from only Florida and Ohio, so the results may not generalize to other states. Now, having said that, I'm going to give you some more studies here in a minute that paints a pretty clear picture. President Biden has clashed with some skeptical Republican governors and GOP Congress members over his pandemic policies, notably mandating COVID vaccinations. By the way, I hate when they call it that because it never was a mandate. It was mandate or test. In the heart of the pandemic, it was like, hey, you don't want to get vaccinated? That's fine, but here, you have to take a test. And it was a quick test, the quick one, like that. So who cares? That's not a mandate. A mandate is take the vaccine or what? We fine you, we put you in jail. We never had that, ever. Republican presidential candidate, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, has become increasingly outspoken. And by the way, the Supreme Court struck down the so-called mandate that wasn't a mandate. Republican presidential candidate, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, has become increasingly outspoken on public health measures. In May, he signed medical freedom measures into law, including bans on mask and vaccine mandates. A study from the University of Maryland and University of California at Irvine that was published in the journal Health Affairs last year found that Republican counties experienced 72.94 more COVID deaths per 100,000 people compared to Democratic counties through October 31st, 2021. COVID vaccine uptake explained about 10% of the difference in mortality between red and blue counties. A nationwide University of South Florida survey of 2,500 American adults that was published in March showed that 49% of Republicans were very or somewhat confident about the safety of COVID vaccines. So about half of Republican voters are pro-vaccine, basically, compared to 88% of Democrats who are pro-vaccine. 88%. Yale study co-author Jacob Wallace said in a statement after the release of their working paper before the study was published that their findings told a very sad story about preventable deaths. It's possible that thousands of deaths could have been averted. University of South Florida professor Stephen Neely, who led the USF study, told the Washington Post the Yale research underscored that a steep partisanship over how safe and effective COVID vaccines were had contributed to needless deaths. Quote, it is one of the most telling metrics I've seen in how the politicization of the pandemic has played out in the real world. So look, that's devastating, and I feel bad for these people. And also, look, let's be clear, there's plenty of anti-vax sentiment in some elements of the left, but it's just way more on the right, and it literally shows up in the deaths. And I don't wish this on anybody, man. I don't care how much they may disagree with me or what have you. I don't wish this on anybody. I mean, just be smart. Look at the actual data. Don't go down a stupid YouTube video rabbit hole among a bunch of charlatans who don't know their ass from their elbow, pretending like they do, pumping up bombastic claims that are totally unfounded. It's like that psycho documentary made by some QAnon weirdo, like died suddenly. Nonsense. It's nonsense. The idea that it's actually the vaccine is killing. They've made such insane claims about the vaccine, like everybody who's had it is going to drop dead within X number of years. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't know how else to say it. And people, I hope they get deprogrammed. I like to think that showing this might nudge some people in the right direction, but I don't know, man. I tend to doubt it. I think this will fall on deaf ears because they might just turn around and say, I don't believe the study. Because the study has been bought by the elites and they're still trying to force the shot on you. And so if you don't trust the source of any information, even if it's a well-done study, even if it's universities looking into it, even if the money is just grant money and it's not, connected to corporations or whatever, if you're just going to say there is no authority that can change my mind, okay, then let's not even have the conversation. Let's not waste our breath. Because if you say every source is unacceptable, then it's like, okay, then it is what it is, You're going to believe whatever you're going to believe. Nothing's going to change your mind. And at least we're honest and we're on the same page about that. But I hope that's not the case. I hope this does change some people's minds because this is a devastating reality. And I don't want people to drop dead from preventable illness when, again, this could be avoided. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.